Order the meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen for Tuesday, March the 5th. We're going to begin our meeting by adopting the agenda, and I have a few changes and additions to the agenda. If you would add at 11A, Visit Oxford, 6 parade permits that are all for third Thursday events. If you would add to consent agenda 6A3, a donation from Home Depot to the Oxford Fire Department for a chop saw. That's what they tell me. And if you'd also add at consent 6B2, permission for Shane Fortner to apply for an AARP grant to upgrade 13 crosswalks in the downtown area. So if I could have a motion to adopt the agenda with those 3 changes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd like to start my mayor's report tonight with a moment of silence. Chief Warrant Officer for Brian Andrew Zimick, age 36, passed away February 23rd, 2024, along with Chief Warrant Officer for Derek Joshua Abbott, age 42, when the helicopter that they were piloting crashed near Boonville, Mississippi during a routine training flight. Zimick, a native of Oxford, Mississippi, is survived by his wife of 3 years and their 4 children. If you'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We have just rolled in with smoke coming off our tires from Jackson, Mississippi, where I took 18 fifth graders today to the state capitol to watch their legislature in action, although there wasn't a lot of action. It's the last day that things can come out of committee to be considered by the House and Senate, and so there were a whole lot of people running around like chickens with their head cut off, going from committee meeting to committee meeting, trying to get their bills moved out of committee. But it was certainly a fun day. I'm not sure I'm even making correct sentences at this point because nobody can talk more than 18 fifth grade girls, and they have about talked me to death today. I will actually go back to Jackson tomorrow morning to lobby for 2 days. So this is when the real lobbying starts. Once the bills have gone through committee and are out on the floor, this is when you start talking about appropriations and roads and capital improvements and that kind of thing. So I'll be back in Jackson tomorrow toting the Oxford flag. I've had the opportunity since our last meeting 2 weeks ago to speak to Leadership Lafayette, a men's luncheon group, our Lucky Day Scholars, the ASB Senate, and had an interview about Oxford on WTVA News. I want to thank all of you who donated green beans and took them to the fire department. I want to thank Stronger Together Oxford, our fire department, and our building and grounds department for finishing up the Extra Tables March of the Mayors event today. Over the past month, we've been collecting canned green beans, and today our fire department and building and grounds folks loaded up and transported 3 pallets of green beans to Tupelo, where they were unloaded and reboxed with donations from cities across North Mississippi. At the end of the day, the North Mississippi group of cities packed over 1,200 boxes of food, and 144 of those boxes came home with our crew to be at the pantry to serve people that need it in the Oxford and Lafayette County area. So thank you so much to Marley Carpenter, who really led the charge on that, and to our other employees that participated. With that, I'll ask you to authorize the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on February the 20th.
Motion made.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ask you to authorize the approval of accounts for all city departments.
Move we pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I ask you to consider the consent agenda with the 2 items that were added.
Move to recommend the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I will ask Benji Hanks to come up, and I'm going to ask the board to adopt a retirement resolution for our Oxford Utilities Electric Division employee, Benji Hanks. I know he loves coming up here for me to do this in front of everybody. Clearly got a lot of students here tonight, Benji. And we're glad we do. We're glad when y'all come. All right, whereas Benji W. Hanks has been an employee of the City of Oxford for over 28 years, establishing himself as a valuable resource and respected among his fellow workers in the entire Oxford and Lafayette County community. And whereas Benji Hanks, with his dedication, knowledge, and abilities, has excelled while working for Oxford Utilities, where he was hired on September the 6th, 1995, as a groundman in the electric department. He completed training and was promoted to journeyman lineman, subsequently elevated to line crew foreman, and ultimately promoted to electric operations superintendent, where he has served for the last 14 years. Whereas Benji Hanks' comprehensive knowledge of his job and of the Oxford Utilities electric system will be deeply missed. And whereas Benji Hanks has always made workplace safety a priority of his leadership, and it has led to an exemplary safety record for the utility. And whereas Benji Hanks has made a mark on the city of Oxford through a commendably high standard of service to its citizenry, characterized by his willingness to show patience, courtesy, and respect for the citizens that he served. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Oxford, Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Oxford express their sincere appreciation and gratitude to Benji Hanks for his work on behalf of the City of Oxford and the community. We extend to him all the best wishes for a happy and enriching retirement. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes of the City of Oxford, and that a copy of the same be presented to Benji Hanks on this day, the 5th of March, 2024. What are we gonna do without you?
I don't know.
I don't either. I don't either, that's the problem.
I've got to think about it. I've been here my whole life. I don't know what I'm gonna do without it either.
Well, when you get tired of it, just come on back.
All right.
Benji, thank you for all of your service to our community. You're the best. Could I have a motion to adopt the retirement resolution for Benji Hanks?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I'm opposed, but I don't get to vote. All right, I will ask you to authorize 3 appointments to the Mayor's Commission on Disabilities. We were excited. We advertised this a few weeks ago that we had spots available on this commission, and we had 3 people who are excited to serve. And so I recommend to you Dr. Bill Mayo, Barbara Bain, and Summer Chappell, if you would please appoint them. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Request permission to approve, is McCutcheon here or DC? Okay. Request permission to approve a parade assembly permit for the Special Olympics to host a law enforcement torch run on May 6th from 10:30 to 11.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I ask permission to approve a parade assembly permit for the Destination Oxford Car Show to host a car show on May 18th from 6 a.m. until 3.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ask permission to approve a parade assembly permit for the U.S. Marshals to host the 8th annual Fallen Heroes Run on March 8th from 7 to 8.
Move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then we have the addition of the 6 special event permits that will be on third Thursdays when Visit Oxford is proposing to have entertainment in the Pocket Park next door.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Sorry I made you walk up here, DC. All right, request by the University of Mississippi for modifications to Old Taylor Road for the proposed Oxford University Stadium expansion. Ben, you want to get us started, or?
I think Virginia's going to come up.
Okay. Hey, Virginia.
Hello, good evening. I'm Virginia Pence. I'm the Assistant University Architect with Facilities Planning at Ole Miss. We thank you for the time to discuss this project tonight. I also have with me Chad Hunter, the Interim Director of Facilities Planning and University Architect. What we would like to show you this evening is a proposed project for Oxford University Stadium expansion. Let's see, once it gets up there. So the addition will take place off the third baseline, and it's actually going to serve as a new improved accessibility point with a street level access point that will provide the ingress and egress for the third baseline and the left field seating, relieving some of the congestion when everyone's leaving and providing much needed bus drop-off for summer camps and that sort of thing, and also the courtesy shuttle for ADA spectators. So in order to do some of this work, the long-term plan for this space, we require at least 12 of the spaces that are currently off-street parking to convert to sidewalk. So it would connect to the ADA sidewalk that was just completed and run north and to just about the entry of the parking lot on the opposite side. We further request to convert the entire east side as a sidewalk to increase the safety of the pedestrian traffic on this road. That would connect a sidewalk connection from the University Avenue and Gertrude Ford parking lots for people to walk safely all the way to this sporting venue. And in the falls, they could actually take this part and cut across to Vaught Hemingway Stadium. The other part of our request includes a temporary construction easement to shift the lanes for safe construction of this addition. You'll see in the packet a site logistics plan. We have Casey Rogers with ICM Construction that can speak further to that point. Temporary to our team is 18 months. So this would start at the end of the season this year, run through next season, and complete in the spring of 2026. So I'm happy to have ICM explain the construction detour part before opening for questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so Casey.
Hey, Casey.
How are you doing?
Well, good. How are you?
Good. All right, so I provided some visuals here. As we're adding on to the stadium, the structure itself is about 20 feet lower than the road, the first floor. So, and the third base extension is going to be really close to the road. We're going to be about 15 feet from our building to the existing edge of pavement right now. And at the building line, we're going down with a vertical excavation of about 15 to 20 feet, depending on where you are on that road. On the upper side of that excavation, we have to put a large crane. Because it's a stadium construction, the seating portion, we're actually going to be seating for the stadium itself, is made out of precast. So they'll be arriving on 18-wheelers. Each piece of precast weighs about 10 to 15,000 pounds, which requires us to have about a 250-ton crane. That's a very large crane. And we have to reach over the building that we're adding on to lift and put all of that in place. So because we can't have a 250-foot crane right on the edge of that excavation for fear of it caving, we have to back it up just a little bit. And that's where we really are concerned about the traffic and safety with the swing radius of the crane. So what we were asking for is, like Virginia said, is one lane to be moved over so we are able to divert around that crane operation during construction.
How long will the crane be there? Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So the crane will arrive in around December of this year, between December 15th and January 1st, depending on the weather and material getting here between now and then. And then it will be on site until about September of next year. So it's because we have to put the steel up, pour the concrete in order to stabilize the structure, then put the precast in, then put more steel up for the roof. It's a little bit of a protracted duration for the crane.
And I appreciate that. And you're gonna have a crane there. We know that. I mean, that's the only way to build it. I get that. My concerns are really twofold. I mean, I can boil them down to two main concerns. Number one is losing parking places. That wasn't mentioned in the presentation, and I don't blame you, I wouldn't have either. But losing parking places is a real deal breaker for me. I know that it is hard for anybody that's not in our offices to even imagine how many questions we get, how much pushback we get. It would be impossible to understand without driving through our downtown neighborhoods every morning. And I'll tell all you students this. I said this to the ASB Senate the other night. There's not an availability problem, there's a proximity problem. And nobody wants to walk, if your parking pass is out at the Jackson Avenue Center, but your class is over here on this side of campus, you're gonna park on 5th Street and walk. You've proven that, we've seen it. That's fine, it's a city street, you're allowed to park on it. Quit blocking in driveways before I really get onto you. But it's a proximity issue from university parking. And so to eliminate any on this side where we are just covered up like a parking lot all over our downtown neighborhoods, concerns me. It doesn't, on game days, we have grown to expect that. We want it. I mean, we want all the people you can fit in there, you know? I mean, I'm super excited about this project, but eliminating parking spaces for me, when I think that just from looking at it in our office, there may be some other things to at least explore. I would ask that we explore those things, perhaps moving the sidewalk to the other side of the street. I'll tell you this, the biggest deal breaker for me is, you know, I have said since I got this job, you know, some of the worst lack of planning issues have come from not planning for enough traffic and roadway. Enter South Lamar. Previous administration let people build all the way up to South Lamar, so from the roundabouts to Belk, that'll never be widened. It is a disaster. Jackson Avenue, even the way it's done, no frontage road, 4,226 curb cuts, and it's a disaster. And I don't ever want to set my community up to have a problem or an issue where they can't expand a roadway. And the way this is currently drawn, if the city decides in 15 years, we really need to widen this roadway, we need more lanes, and I can imagine with the university's plans for growth and the predicted plans for growth of the community outside of the university, expanding that roadway at some point in time is what somebody sitting in this chair is going to be talking about. And I don't feel like I'm being a good steward of my community and looking out for it long term if I say, you know what, let's do that, let's build this. I want to do all of this. I just want us to figure out the way it can affect the least number of parking spots and affect, you know, and that may mean digging back into that hill and building a retaining wall. And dude, I know what they cost. I've had to, you know, I know y'all are like going, yeah, it's not that minor. I know it's not. But for the long-term capacity of our community, I just really feel like we need to explore every one of those options. I don't want to be hard to work with, and I'm super excited about the project, but I just feel passionately that eliminating parking spaces for this board to say, let's eliminate parking spaces on the side of campus that we are drowning over here, you know, that's just me, and lucky y'all, I don't get to vote. So, but I love the project, but I just would ask that we take a minute to explore some different options to determine if there's a way to not build where the road can't be expanded later. I think it's important.
I think we can certainly entertain that. So in regards to the construction process and the safety aspect and actually the logistics of providing that crane, are we okay with that lane shift there, which does consume some parking?
I mean, you're not going to talk me into liking it, but I mean, I understand it. You know what I mean? I mean, the board chime in here. I would love to see it the least amount of time. I mean,
you're talking about from December of 24, you know.
Yeah, and if we can do that, it helps us speed up construction.
Now, for temporary,
okay.
To me, it's necessary, and I support. You know, you're going to need the crane, and you need the crane in a safe location.
And I
so
think
I
we
don't have a problem with temporary shifting that.
Yeah, I mean, we want it to happen. We want to work with you any way that we can. I just, you know, things that that I think about. I mean, bus parking right now, buses just block up the whole road, and everybody's fine with it. I mean, it's just for those summer camps in the summer. So, you know, maybe we don't have the big bus location. Maybe we're just fine with blue lights to let buses unload safely, you know, for the summer camp times. Or maybe we, you know, one thing that I'm positive of that I've had to learn over the past 7 years, because I knew nothing about traffic and traffic engineering, is one of the greatest traffic calming measures that we have in town is cars parked on both sides of the road. I mean, it slows people down. People get mad when we, you know, don't want people parking on the street, but it slows people down. It's a traffic calming measure. It allows us to expand that road rate possibly at some other time. So can we just...
Well, we can explore a minimal version of this, that because it is important for the almost 4,000 people that are now exiting out of this point to have a way to disperse once they get to the top of the hill. So that requires a sidewalk, not running into the side of parallel parking. So that's a safety issue from the design standpoint. I agree with you on the bus drop-off. That's perhaps something that could be addressed in a different way. We did consider a very quick look at a more modest approach to this, and then I think you have a diagram of sort of the minimum request to make the building part and the egress stairs that we're adding to the concourse level and the outfield level. I believe that's a more conservative option of 12 space reduction. And then we would put a crosswalk and finish the sidewalk on the west side where there's not a huge drainage culvert, and a more problematic, how do we drain all of this surface parking under a sidewalk? And so we quickly tried to evaluate what's, the minimum requirements to make the safe exit for basically the third base half of the stadium plus the left field. And so that's what's loading up now. It does still require a parking reduction. It's just about half of the full document that you saw before.
And what does it do to the roadway as far as expanding it later?
Takes it away.
I know, that's,
I mean, you're losing what could possibly be a 4-lane road, no matter what if you go into the right of way.
The building structure itself does not go into the right of way. It's only the hardscape and sidewalks.
well, and that's what I thought. I mean, I realize the building does not, the way the building is located, situated, all that does not. So I don't, I don't think anybody's saying change anything on the building, but let's figure out a way to save
To do both.
the opportunity to widen this road at some point in time, because I just, I believe is looking at the university's long-range plans over the years and the welcome center that will probably be in that intersection and a parking garage and a this and that and what have you down the road, that's gonna become probably the most used entrance into the university. It probably is now, but it will certainly be then. And I think we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot to think it needed to stay a 2-lane road.
Very valid point. We are trying to respond to safety concerns that we have for the foot traffic, not just on game days, but the student foot traffic during class change, and where they don't have a choice of walking on the other side of the car because the hill drops so sharply, so they walk in the road, which is not helpful to anyone. So trying to find a balance, we may need to.
As they say, let us go back to the drawing board.
Okay.
And I think what we can do is show the opportunities for expansion, particularly of the road, and providing sidewalk capability and safe access pedestrian travel. And it may require that we accept putting a sidewalk in now for pedestrian traffic, but obviously if we're gonna expand roads, that ultimately requires a lot more construction. So we would just sort of sacrifice those sidewalks, which is just some concrete, to accommodate a road expansion if need be. So
Yeah.
we can provide.
Well, people smarter than me, people
right.
like
We can
you
provide a
and these
phase.
people right here need to talk from here. But
We can provide a sort of a phased approach and show you the opportunities there for an expansion.
thank y'all.
So is that something that we can respectfully request a follow-up visit on the next,
Absolutely. As soon
meeting
as
agenda?
you come to any type of, I mean, if it's 2 weeks from now, great. If it's longer than that, fine. But yes, know that you're welcome to be back on the agenda in 2 weeks if we have something that we can,
that's wonderful.
then we can look at. Do you need approval for the crane before that time, or do you?
It would be helpful. Yes.
Okay, so as far as the crane goes, I know we had kind of talked about, is there a way to narrow the lanes and things that didn't eliminate?
That is one.
That was a long-term solution for the crane. I don't think it is. I don't
Okay.
know what the reach is and how close it has to be or how far it can be away from the building.
Yeah,
But I don't think, I mean, either way, you're gonna have that shift because it's close as you can get into the building, it's still gonna be.
Okay.
It may end up increasing the crane size, which then just takes up more room. So the crane right now, given the spans and the loads it's required to lift and pick, it's sort of the most efficient solution in regards to that equipment.
Okay, I mean, I think everybody's fine with the building and understands that the building
So what-
is,
Just to be, so the crane should be December 24 through September of 26, estimated.
September 25.
26.
If I can't say, December of 24 through October 1 of 25. Is that okay?
Yeah.
That takes us through the stuff.
We all know that's gonna change 9 times. We built enough stuff to know that. Just, and I know you'll do it as speedy as you can, but none of us can judge what the weather's gonna be over the next 10 months and all those things. We get that. We get that. We just, y'all be as thoughtful about it as you can be. And so do I have a motion to allow
Motion.
the crane? Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay,
We'll see you
we'll look
again.
forward to
Thank you
visiting
so
again.
much.
Thanks so much. All right. Request approval of final plat approval amended for case 3029 Blue Delta Capital LLC for Greenpoint Commercial Subdivision, Phase 2, Lot 1, for property located on Ricky D. Britt Boulevard.
Okay, so this is a request for final plat approval. The subject property is around 6.63 acres on Ricky D. Britt Boulevard, as the mayor just said. The request is to subdivide Lot 1 of the Greenpoint Commercial Subdivision into 3 parcels. These proposed lots do meet the requirements of the underlying zoning, which is suburban corridor. Mississippi's subdivision law requires that the applicant who is proposing any change in a platted subdivision notify all persons to be adversely affected thereby or directly interested herein, and requires their signature of approval on the modification. The identification of those persons is left up to the discretion of the applicant. In this request, the applicant has provided letters from the parties determined to be adversely affected or directly interested in the property, stating that they don't object to the modification. The plat was reviewed at the January 8th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended that the Mayor and Board of Aldermen approve this plat request, with the condition that approval is for the plat as submitted, subject to the necessary revisions per the Site Plan Review Committee. That's also staff's recommendation tonight.
All righty. Questions from the board, comments?
I move we approve subdivision.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Request approval of preliminary and final plat approval for case 3030 9th Street LLC for 805 University Avenue Place subdivision for property located at 803 and 805 University Avenue. Robert.
All right, subject property is located on University Avenue, roughly north of the intersection of South 8th Street, and it is about 0.88 acres. Applicant has proposed this 2-lot subdivision to separate the Meek Duval or Doty House from another 0.46 acre lot. The proposed lots comply with the minimum lot size, frontage requirements, and would not make the Meek Duval House non-conforming with the requirements of the Land Development Code in regards to frontage setbacks, coverage, et cetera. Engineering has provided comments in the attached staff report regarding site development and access, water, sewer and utilities, and stormwater management. At the January Planning Commission meeting, the commission recommended approval with the conditions that are in the staff report, and staff recommends approval of the requested preliminary and final plat with the 3 conditions that are in your memo. Of note, we did have an objection letter from one of the neighbors and a rebuttal from the applicant. I believe that Ben sent that out to all of you.
Yes, we've received both of those. Okay. All right, so does the board have any questions to start with?
Yeah, Robert, the subdivision, it's going from basically 1 to 2 lots?
Correct.
There's no subdivision of lot 2, meaning
No.
2 separate lots?
Correct.
So you can basically build one more house.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there are no plans for building anything at this time. The site plan was withdrawn completely. This is just for splitting the lot into 2 parts.
So that was a large discussion at the planning commission meeting in January.
Correct.
Was
There
that site plan being withdrawn?
And there was a request for a special exception for an RCID, which would allow condominium style of ownership. And the request at that time was for 2 structures. That was denied.
Okay.
So the only thing that would be allowed to be constructed here is a single family home, one single family home.
Okay. That's what I was trying to recall, because I sat through that meeting and remember the long discussion of one was denied and one was withdrawn. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we typically, this is not a public hearing, but we have gotten emails regarding some citizens that I know feel strongly about this, and I know there was a lot of debate in the Planning Commission meeting, although it did pass unanimously through the Planning Commission. Is there anyone here that wants to speak if there's one spokesperson, I'm not gonna open it up to lots of comments, but if there's any one person that wants to speak, I would allow it. Okay, then any other questions from the board or comments?
Is there, Robert, one more question. The existing entrance is to the, is it gonna share an entrance or have its own?
So for right now, there are no changes to the entrance, no changes to the infrastructure, no changes to anything. This is literally just taking the house, the piece of land.
This is just splitting the
it in
lots.
half. Correct.
There's no plans, we don't know the details of anything.
Exactly.
Objections, I said move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve the preliminary and final plat approval for case 3030. Do we have a second? All right, no second, then it dies for lack of a second. So it is not approved. All right, second reading and public hearing on a proposed ordinance amending sections 2671, 266, 267, 268, and 269 of the Land Development Code. Same.
Excuse me. Yeah, second reading of the Land Development Code modifications. We discussed this at the last meeting where there's a section of the west side of town at Pat Patterson Parkway and Anderson Road that's in Legacy TNB. This provision would allow requests for a restaurant that serves alcohol to be made by special exception and also liquor stores. And then there's a cross-reference to density provisions that is found within the multifamily, and that's basically cross-reference to several different sections of code. So we've not received any comments at this point. It's a public hearing. If there's anybody that wants to speak.
All right, is there anybody here that wants to speak to this change in the Land Development Code? All right, hearing none, does the board wish to vote as we've not received any
I move we approve.
information? Second. All right, a motion by Bailey, second by Addy, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you. All right, Ashley, request permission to approve a list of budget reallocations and amendments.
Yes, it's getting we're about halfway through our budget year, so this is our first list.
How can that be already?
I know, this is their halfway point, so.
Last week, it feels like.
You gotta start budgets next week.
I know.
No, not next week.
I know, that's what I'm like. Yes,
This is basically a housekeeping item. Most of these additions, you'll see are increases in revenue where we got a really good rate on our new depository, so I had to up those numbers because we're getting more interest than we thought we were. So that's what the majority of these are.
So more money.
More money, yes, sir.
You'll make that motion.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank
First
you.
reading of a proposed ordinance amending multiple sections of Chapter 114 Utilities, Articles 1, 2, and 3 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Oxford to adjust the water rates inside and outside the corporate limits. Mark Levy.
Okay, so the proposed changes to this ordinance are twofold. The first section, 11441, deals with a surcharge to the outside rate for customers who are currently in the Pumpkin Water Association, and that'll happen when Oxford Utility takes over that service. And also in section 11486 deals with the process and the requirements by which a subdivision inside and outside of 1 mile of the corporate limits requests water and sewer service. So we can look at it individually, and there's a map on the screen that we can go over a second. The first want to say there are no proposed rate adjustments to any existing customers. The addition of subsection E in 11441 only applies to those customers that are currently held within the Pumpkin Water Association. The proposed surcharge for those customers, and that happens when the city establishes service, is a one-time monthly charge of $12.25. They'll pay the outside rate that all water customers currently have outside city limits plus the additional $12.25. The second part of the ordinance deals with the process by which subdivisions inside and outside 1 mile is approved for water service. So currently there are 4 conditions that apply for both the requests that happen inside and the outside of 1 mile. The first is that they must be approved by the Oxford Utilities Director. and the city engineer, and that's related to water and sewer capacity. The second is they approved by the mayor, board of aldermen. Third is they agree to develop the water and sewer infrastructure in accordance with our standard specifications. And then, of course, they've got to be approved by the Public Service Commission. In addition to those 4 conditions, which they're listed in subsections A, 1, 3, and 4, we're adding a section requiring all subdivisions within 1 mile be developed in accordance to the Land Development Code, and the areas outside of 1 mile must meet the requirements of the Lafayette County Land Development Standards and Regulations. So inside 1 mile is our Land Development Code, outside is the Lafayette County Land Development Standards. The reason for this change is due to the policy accepted by the board, which allowed for land outside 1 mile to be regulated by the county. And you can see from the map, the pumpkin is in the red, and that dash red line is 1 mile outside the corporate limits. So there's a little section of pumpkin that lies within 1 mile. That area and everywhere in the yellow or green would have to adhere to our Land Development Code. Everything outside that dash red line would be the county. All that's happening in addition to the surcharge. I know that's
Right.
a lot, so
No,
I'm putting it out there.
I think you summarized it
subject
very well.
Subject to council.
And I'll repeat, no rate adjustments to current customers. So let that be the takeaway for anybody writing an article about it. There are no rate adjustments for current customers. It is for people who are in Pumpkin Water, which is a water system that the city is taking over. Pumpkin Water is.
That's it. First reading.
All righty, first reading. Thank you, sir. Request permission for 3 employees, 2 from Development Services and 1 from Building and Grounds, to attend the APWA North American Snow Conference in Kansas City, Missouri, April 28th through May 1st, at an estimated cost of $5,664.
Motion made.
Go figure out what to do. All right, motion is second. All in favor? Any opposed? Request permission to close the inner courthouse circle, the south side, for Oxford Utilities to install a water tap for the Lafayette County Courthouse during spring break, weather permitting.
Motion made. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Consider a contract with HDR Engineering for professional services.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Request permission to advertise for bids for water distribution and maintenance projects.
These are ARPA projects that have to be under contract by August the 30th of this year, so this is just to kickstart the process.
So that we don't,
Motion made.
that money has to be spent by then.
Yes.
All right, a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. There you go. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? The board will now consider an executive session.